I caught it and then had to go. It's a largemouth on a bed, and it's the male, and I thought it was a 3-pounder, and it's there in the bed. Dude, it has females coming in all around it. There's 4 of them. They're all trying to have sex together. It's an orgy. And every time a female comes in, the male gets distracted, and the females don't want anything to do with it. So eventually I started to figure out the rhythm of what I needed to do, and I'm throwing a little creature bait, and I'm getting it fired up, I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, let me try a different shape. I put on a creature hog, a little heavier weight. Dude, hit it, freaking ate it, swallowed it, pulled over 2 cables with 20-pound tests, swing them in the boat, and I'm like, gotta go. Yeah! In the mouth! In the mouth! In the mouth, guys. Thanks for hanging with me today. Listen, I know that sucked the last couple hours. Guys, sight fishing is not fun. I don't care what you say. Live scope is not fun. But it's fun when you catch a 4-pounder in his face. You like the little bump over the chain? I don't know what else to do, you know? Wow, thank you, God. Wow, what a day, dude. Holy shit. Woo! Now, the bed across the way from that bed had a 6 on it, and I spent an hour on it and could not catch it. A full hour, dude. Caught the male, which would have probably gave me a couple ounces, let the male go, still couldn't catch her. Smoked an hour on 1 fish, but I don't regret it. I ordered 1,000 count of those because I knew they weren't making them anymore. That's old Pinky, bro. I didn't catch any on it today, but it is a bed fishing secret trick of mine, dude.
You know how I feel about pink.
Oh yeah. First thing this morning, I'm like, I need to go start on my herring spots. So I start on the first one, which was the best one, didn't catch them. Go to the second one, didn't catch them. So I burned like an hour and a half on the herring, and I go to my B plan spots, because my game plan was I need 12 pounds of spots, 12 to 13 pounds of spots, and then I'm gonna go look for a largemouth. Just literally just look. Go to my second deal, which I knew it when I found them, but I wasn't like 100% sure, but today I verified it. So it's like 8 to 12 foot of water on like these flat points, flat shoals, anything inside the pockets. Dude, the spots are spawning in 8 to 12 feet of water. So I'm using forward facing to bed fish. Slow start to the morning, guys. Hang with me, hang with me. I don't know what's going on. It's not quite 3, but he's heavy too. Yeah. Big one. So you'll be looking out there and it's all flat, like there's nothing out there. And all they're on stumps. So you'll see the little stump, or any little trash, but mainly stumps. The stump, don't see a fish. Dude, you throw your Nico out there, your junk out there, it's sinking. As it's sinking, dude, the fish, and if he doesn't eat it, he goes back. The one bedfish I caught, dude, I had to get him like fired up like a bedfish. But it's happening in 8 to 12 feet of water. I do feel good about it. I feel good about having a fucked start and then, because that's hard sometimes. You go an hour and a half and dude, you got literally one that weighs 9 ounces. So it does feel good to, you know, do something that I'm not good at and catch them and then, you know, make the most of the day. The hook is just there to just hold the tube in place. I'm gonna rig one up on an actual hook where you could catch them, but so I use this, we used to call these Toro tubes. It's by a different company now, but these are Magnum tubes and you use it just to get the fish fired up. So you throw it in there, they see this giant thing, it looks like a condom in their bed. And they can't stand it. Look at that thing, dude. so ridiculous. In fishing, it's just you. You're your own everything. You're the truck driver. You're the mechanic. You're the rigger. You're everything, you know. And this is it's a lot. Yeah, it's funny. I always have this argument with Brian the carpenter. I think I told you this before. He's like, I'll complain to him like, I'm out in the shop. I'm rigging. You know, I'm spooling line. You know, and I'm like, God, it sucks. I'm rigging. I'm spooling line. He's like, man, I love that stuff. I'm like, dude, if you did it, you know, 200 days a year for 30 years, you would hate it. You have to have these tight ones. This is size 3. The next size up, they'll just slide down. So you see how tight that is on there? Like you gotta have it that tight. I like it a little below the halfway point. And then there it goes. I kind of like to leave just a little. I don't like to push it all the way in, because actually the way that I'm hooking it, the fat end's on the bottom. So by purposely leaving that nail head exposed, it gets on that bottom and like you can almost hear it. Not a long leader, probably what, 2 foot leader? 2.5 foot leader? That's it. When I do retire, I'm gonna miss a lot of things. But spooling line and rigging is not one of them, dude. I'm not gonna miss that at all. It's right next to that little V stick. It's right to the left of that little stick that's like a V. That one's wide.
It's a wide pit.
I'd like to have that wide one tomorrow. No, dude, it was a tough week. It was a tough week, yeah. It sucks. It's part of the sport that actually I think has gotten harder for me than easier, you know. The fact that, you know, you've done something for so long and on paper you think you would get better and wiser, right? Like that's just simple facts, right? You're like, all right, you've been doing something 30 years, you're older, you're smarter, you've learned more, you know more. You just feel like that at this stage you wouldn't have failure as much, right? You'd have failure less. But it's not like that in fishing. I don't know if it's my personality or if it's the personality of like a competitor or an athlete in a sport. Like you have this mentality where you put a lot of your self-worth in your performance, in your job, you know? And so it's like, when I fail at the job, when I fail at fishing, I feel like I'm a failure, you know what I mean? Like it hurts. But the problem with that is when that carries over into my regular life, right? Which is, you know, like I'm a son and I'm a father and I'm a husband and I'm a friend, I'm a business partner. That passion, that emotion has been with me from my whole life, not just in fishing. You know, you know that, Eric. We've talked about that before. So that's been there, and yeah, I've always hated to fail, but it seems like the older I get, the more I hate it.
8 pounds, 2 ounces today gives you 22 pounds, 10 ounces, and tough one for you this time around, Ike.
Yeah, tough tournament. The irony of it is, you know, you mentioned 30 years, and I've been doing it a long time. I'm really proud of that. My first professional event was here in 1995. It was a Bass Invitational, so it feels good. It feels a little full circle, like a full circle moment for me to be back here 30 years later, and I'm proud that I've been around that long.
Well, you've had some big Texas events, so I look forward to seeing you down the road there. Always great to share the stage with you.
But as much as it hurts, you do have to let it go quick. All right, they're all put to bed. Good night, rods. Sleep tight. I'll see you in a week at Lake Fork. Please, if you're spraying on me right now, spray some fish catching juice on me, because I suck.
Maybe the chemtrails will help you out.
Take a deep breath now. Give me the chemtrail. I need grounding moments to bring me back to reality. And I want to make sure I say this because a lot of people are watching this and be like, dude, complaining about making a living and fishing for 30 years. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you the reality of the emotional roller coaster that is professional fishing. For me, different people handle it different. The call this morning that Estella had a stomach bug, like, brings me a little back to reality. Or, you know, like talking to my mom, talking to my uncle, you know, like even hanging out with you here brings me, family and friends bring me back to reality. We just had a boat accident in professional fishing just last week where 3 people were killed, you know, so you think about like death and tragedy, you know, and you're like, God, I'm so fucking lucky.
How much worse it could be.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm so lucky. You know, I'm a regular dude. I'm not a great Christian. I'm not the perfect person. I'm glad I have a great family and great friends because that helps me. It's like, dude, it's not that bad. You know, it's not that bad. Nobody's dying. Nobody's hurt. You know, everything's okay. Kids are okay. Stella's feeling better. I needed that, you know? And if you think that was dirty, check this out. I got to tell you that in this tournament, you know, having a great first day and then having one of the worst days I've ever had the second day, the irony of it is that this is the place that I fished my first professional event. You got to remember, too, the boats back then, 18, 19-foot boats, 150s, right? Dude, I got a little boat and I launched this little boat. And I remember how vast it was in a different way. Nooks, crannies, creeks, 2 rivers, a dam, a headwater, and like how little I covered in a couple days of looking. I've never been in here. Like, dude, I didn't even scratch the surface. So I remember that, and I remember being a little overwhelmed by the depth of the fishery. Coming from South Jersey, you know, where I grew up, dude, you know this, but for people that don't know this, like in Jersey, South Jersey, 8-10 foot of water is deep. In 1995, this was a completely different fishery. Not as many spots, a lot of largemouth, but smaller average largemouth, and actually had some shoal bass in it as well, red eyes in it as well. So I remember that tournament. Some of the research that I did in the chatter was fishing deep trees and spooning and, like, you know, 20, 30, 40 foot deep, coming to Hartwell thinking I got to fish. Like, that's intimidating as a young angler. This professional event that I fished was an invitational. And back then the invitationals were pro on pro draws. That's a hard concept, I think, for a lot of people to understand, right?
I understand.
Yeah, you don't understand, like, because if you're a younger person and you grew up in the modern age of bass fishing, there was no pro on pro draws. But back then in 1995, the Bassmaster, what is now the Bassmaster Opens, were the Bassmaster Invitationals. And there were no co-anglers. You could be a co-angler and sign up, but you were considered a pro angler if you signed up. You could still sign up if you didn't have a boat, but you were considered a pro angler. But when you signed up with a boat like I did, I was randomly drawn with another person. And that person could be a non-boater or a boater. But we were all pros in the same big pot that was stirred around, you know? And I remember in 1995, that first year, I told myself that when I got a draw that was a good draw, a local guy that knew the fishery, that was his home fishery, or a famous fisherman, which there were a lot of them. There, you know, my heroes as a kid, I would always cede the boat to them, right? So the way that the pro and pro draw worked is you would meet each other at the meeting. Back then there was no virtual, it wasn't your phone, you weren't looking at your meeting here. You had to go to a meeting. It was at an auditorium in a gymnasium at a high school most of the time. It smelled like dirty socks, sweaty socks. You would go to this auditorium and they would literally go over the rules, talk about the off limits in an auditorium. So imagine this, you got 150, 200 pros all in a room with their button-up shirts, patches, vests, big high foam hats, sitting high on their head like this, you know? And dude, they would literally call out the names at the meeting. So you'd have to sit there and wait till your name was called. And so you're nervous then too. And I remember being like, oh, please get a good draw, or please get someone that doesn't know what they're doing so I can go to my fish all day. Either one, right? And I remember my first draw, my first day of my first professional event I ever fished. They said, Runnymede, New Jersey, Mike Iaconelli. His partner is Springfield, Missouri, Charlie Campbell. And I was like, yes, dude, Charlie Campbell? Like the famous Charlie Campbell that fishes the spook, the topwater master? Dude, I know Charlie Campbell. I've read about him since I was 12. Like, this dude is a guru of Zara spooks, of walking baits. And I was stoked. And, you know, we met. And normally when you meet, so they call the names, and literally, dude, you go down there and you look in the crowd. You're in the auditorium. So you like literally, dude, this is so old school. You're literally like, hey. And you see each other and you like point or whatever. And you'd go and you drift off and you'd have this one-on-one conversation. Like, how nice is that? Think about that. You know, like, those days are over, bro. In today's world, people don't even date like that anymore. They meet people on the phone. Anyway, so remember, like, you know, you would meet the person. And when you got a pro-on-pro draw, I had a boat. I found my own fish. Charlie Campbell, obviously, he's my hero. I know he found his own fish. So normally, if the two anglers could not come to an agreement on whose boat, first of all, you had to agree on whose boat to use. Then you'd have to agree on whose fish you go to first. And if you couldn't agree to it, you literally would flip a coin, dude. I can't make this stuff up. When you drew another pro and there was conflict, dude, you wanted your boat and you had the perfect spot to fish all day. You had to compromise, and you had to do it face to face. You had to man up with this guy you didn't know. And remember the times too. In 1995, 98% of the pro anglers in the Bassmaster Invitationals were Southern gentlemen. They were Southern gentlemen that were 35 to 60 years old. Charlie Campbell was probably late 50s, early 60s when I drew him. So you make that comparison, and it was even worse for me because I'm a long hair. Dude, I had long hair back then. I'm a long hair from Jersey that talked fast.
Long hair Yankee.
A young, long hair Yankee. But when I met Charlie Campbell, it was a different scenario because I already had made up my mind at the parameters of my first year fishing opens, and was, if I drew a dude that I knew was a good boater, that was a real pro, I was going to cede the boat instantly. I wanted to learn. So, Charlie Campbell, we're taking your boat. What did you find in the tournament? I have a really good place that I found. What did you find? You know, and you would have to have this honest conversation. And we came up, I remember, you know, he's, of course, guess what he's fishing? Spook, topwater spook. And he's fishing herring fish, shad, spawn, and herring fish. And it's an earlier bite. So it was easy. It was like, great. We're going to fish a topwater in the morning. When you're done that, and it's my half of the day, I'm going to go, I found this creek that has more stained water, and there's flooded bushes. And we're going to flip. We're going to flip a baby brush hog and a jig. And I caught some good ones flipping. And dude, it was a great first experience. of the first day of ever on Lake Hartwell fishing an open. Until I started having success as a pro invitational angler, the response was always the same. It was, who the hell is this Jamoke? I was always not taken seriously. I was always looked down upon. You know, Charlie Campbell was a little different. He was more of an actual real Southern gentleman, but for the most part, dudes didn't want to even talk to me. They don't want to flip no coin with me. They didn't want to even hear what I had to say. You know, I'm being honest, you know, especially when the tournament was down south. You know, if it was Virginia or south, which most of those invitationals were at the time, they didn't want to have anything to do with me. The one time the pro that I drew out with listened to me was when, this was like a year later, this was 1996. I had an invitational on Thousand Islands out of Clayton, New York. So I'm from New Jersey. That's a New York tournament. Tom Mann Jr., another hero of mine, dude. Great guy. Love him to death. Drew out with Tom Mann Jr. And he had a conversation with me where he's like, man, I didn't have a great practice. I've been catching some smallmouth out in the lake, but it's like, you know, whatever. It's like 10 pounds. He's like, what do you got? And I'm like, and I literally found him. I found him on the Canadian side, largemouth. And I'm like, dude, Tom, I'm like, it's, you know, it's great to fish with you. You're a hero since I was a little kid. I've got him, you know? And in that one, we used his boat, but we fished my fish all day. I let him have the first half of the day. I took the second half of the day in front of his boat, and we both killed him. And I had him, I actually had my first top 10 in an invitational fishing with Tom Mann Jr. So this is how I do it when I'm bed fishing with it. I put number 4s on, it comes with 6s, so I have two oversized hooks. I put a red one on the back, and I put a little, I wrap a couple strands of wire around there. So it just slows the float. It still floats, still kind of sits like this. But when you hit it, you know, I twitch it on the top. It comes down, instead of just popping right back up, it just kind of slowly comes up. That lure is the first artificial lure I ever caught a bass on. Dude, I remember, it's crazy because I was like 10 years old, but I could close my eyes right now and remember everything. Dude, I could hear we were in the Poconos, I could hear the noise, I could smell the Poconos, like everything is so, I can see it. And dude, my grandfather had this in his box, a bait like this, a 9S. And you know, like his tackle box, dude, was the coveted box. We called my grandfather Pop. And it was this old green, I still have the box to this day, green box, hip roof, we used to call it. You'd open the brass latch, and when you opened it, the roof would open the tray, and 3 levels would come out. Dude, my pop loved that box. It was like the holy grail. He had lures in there, hooks, split shots. He had a stringer. He had the layer scale, the old spring scale. He had salmon eggs in there. Dude, I could smell the box. And he was always like, in the nicest way, he's always like, stay the fuck out of my box, never go. In the nicest way. I love my pop. But dude, I had this one morning, I woke up for everybody else. And I'm like, Pop left, he would always leave his box on the porch of this cabin we stayed at. And I'm like, and I go out there, dude, I open it up and I pick out this lure and I'm like, yeah. And dude, I remember I tied this thing on, and at the time I mainly trout fished with live bait, pan fish and trout fished. So it had a snelled eagle claw hook on a snap swivel and a split shot. Took the split shot off, took the hook off, and I'm like, I'll just put it on this snap swivel. I put it on there. Dude, I went to the end of the dock and I'm like, all right, what do you do with this thing? You know, like looking at it in the water. I'm like, made a cast off the dock and it hit. And I just remember thinking, man, that was cool. And just ripples coming off of it. And I'm like, like I start reeling it and the water's real clear so I could see it. And I'm like, whoa, dude, that looks like a real fish. Holy. And I stopped reeling it. And dude, it rose back up and ripples came off again. And I'm like, this is cool. And dude, a 2.5 pounder just smokes it. Big, dude, my heart. I like never caught a fish on an artificial. Fighting this thing, wasn't even a big one. Dude, I swing it up. I almost reeled it to the tip. That's how green I was at the time. I reeled it to the tip. And I was like so amazed at this fish that would hit a thing that's not real, that's not alive. And dude, when I think back on that fish and that lure, it's the single reason I fell in love with fishing. It's the only reason I'm here 40 years later, 30 years doing it professionally, is because of that bite on that lure. Dude, that's what got me hooked. So to see it all these years later, here we are, I'm 30 years into this career, 40 years later, brings back a lot of memories, and it brings back the nostalgia of why I fell in love with bass fishing in the first place, you know?